Good day. My name is Noah Briggs, and I am a reenactor who represents a Federal Army surgeon. I reenact with the 3rd U.S. Infantry. And today, as part of the ongoing series of videos discussing events that happened at Fort Stevens, I would like to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about the medical side. However, in wake of the current pandemic, I have opted not to do anything about gory, bloody surgery and surgical instruments, and instead have decided to concentrate on something that's a little more mundane, such as disease. Unfortunately, disease was a major factor in the Army throughout all seasons, and the most common one, as many historians are quickly to point out, is that diarrhea is the most common illness. Now for us, diarrhea is not really that much of a problem. You just take a cupful of Pepto-Bismol and you feel a little bit better. For the original cast, it was a slightly different story. And today we're going to discuss how they got it, how they transmitted it, and more importantly, how they were able to treat it. So how are they getting it? Well, the first answer usually comes from the food and the water. This is the first time that many of these soldiers had actually been away from home. Mom is no longer cooking for them, so sometimes they're responsible for cooking for themselves when they are issued their food. And as a result, sometimes in their eagerness to get the food into their mouths, they don't always cook it all the way through. And as a result, it's not necessarily at the temperatures that are now recommended by the USDA. And consequently, you can get trichinosis, E. coli, or salmonella, collectively known as food poisoning. And one of the symptoms of food poisoning is diarrhea. The second way that they could easily acquire diarrhea is by drinking the water. It's not filtered, so there are an awful lot of little bitty things floating in the water. Were there filtered canteens available? Absolutely, but that was a private purchase. It was not issued by the Army, and a lot of the troops simply did not have the money to be able to make that kind of a purchase. So they were drinking raw water straight from the streams, and unfortunately that's going to play havoc with their digestive system, and that's also going to continue giving them the diarrhea. Also, personal hygiene. Not everybody washed their hands before cooking or after going to the bathroom. And as a result, frequently they would be transferring those germs from their rear ends up to their mouths, and they would perpetuate the cycle of diarrhea in the process. Not to mention the fact that flies are everywhere. Flies land on animal feces, they land on human feces, and they land wherever they please, and they continue to spread the diseases as well. So the soldiers are going to show up at surgeon's call, and most likely it's going to be something along the lines of, "Doc, I have a horrible case of the Trots. Can you help me out?" Well, the surgeon actually had a couple of options in his arsenal, some of which I'm going to discuss today. Also, the soldiers had something in their arsenal which they were not fully aware of, but it actually worked. We'll get to that in a moment. All right. First thing up for treating most of the stomach problems is something that's probably familiar to you today, and that is bicarbonate of soda. Simply a white powder. It was used as an antacid and helped as a digestive remedy in general. The modern equivalent these days is Alka-Seltzer tablets, which would be a really great example. However, if the Trots were becoming really bad, then they would need something that would stop it right away. And the most common one in most of the surgeons' arsenals would immediately and instinctively go to opium pills. This is a sort of a semi-example of what they look like. These are not actual opium pills. I don't have the licensing to handle it. These are pretend, so we'll just pretend. Anyway, one of the side effects of any opiate, as you probably no doubt from the current opioid problem that's going on in the country, one of the side effects is constipation. So if you take an opium pill, it's certainly going to dry up your diarrhea, which is a good thing for a while. Then it's difficult to go to the bathroom, which means they're going to be right back in line on surgeon's call saying, "Doc, I can't poo." So the doctor will probably turn around and issue these. Again, these are not the real thing. These are non-functioning examples. That fancy long-term Latin name actually means that they are pills that contain a substance called mercury. In this instance, the mercury is in such small doses that the body senses that it's there and says, "No, we don't want it. It's a heavy metal. It's going to be poisonous." So the body finds a way to pack it up and kind of move it out the back door in as most efficient way as possible. I'm trying to keep the gross out factor to a minimum here. In any rate, the soldiers could easily find themselves on this hideous spin cycle of blue mass pills, which is what they were sometimes nicknamed, opium pills, blue mass, opium, blue mass, opium. And that's just absolutely terrible. But there was a way to get out of it without them even realizing it. And that magic substance was called coffee. Yes, coffee. That's right, a cup of Java may actually help out with your diarrhea. How? Quite simple. Number one, what do you do to make hot coffee? You boil water. Boiling water does what? Kills all those ugly little microorganisms that are giving you the diarrhea. Number two, coffee and tea, it's coffee and tea, basically. They also have a substance in them that's called tannic acid. Now, as you can see, the surgeon also has tannic acid in his arsenal, in his kit of medicines. He also actually has coffee and tea, which he can dispense for medicinal purposes. So if he doesn't want to do something as strong as opium pills, for example, he might actually prescribe them. Go drink a couple of cups of coffee and you should be fine. Really? Yes. Okay. So, soldiers drinking a cup of coffee. The coffee helps regulate the bowels. The boiling water has killed off the germs. And the tannic acid has helped as a mild reliever of diarrhea without getting you into an addiction either to mercury or opiates. So, in one way, in one sense, they are actually very well covered. So, today we have actually learned that the most common disease is in fact nothing more than common diarrhea. It was prevalent in both armies, North and South. It was a very common problem, and there were several different ways to address it, ranging from mild medicines to rather drastic medicines to an unintentional home-based cure-all that was actually sitting in the soldier's haversack to begin with. So, I hope that you have enjoyed this little brief presentation on some 19th century medicine, and I wish you well, and thank you very much.